I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christine Martin. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today I want to talk about some of the vandalism that has been going on across the United States, particularly with Tesla dealerships. And also people have been vandalizing individual cars, keying cars, rubbing like boo-boo on them, things like that. And it's just really crazy what Democrats are doing. And some people are mocking Elon and making fun of him, and they're saying this is what it gets. And there's people who are trying to compare it to the Bud Light boycott. So that's really stupid, and I want to break that down and talk about that. It seems like the left still doesn't understand the Bud Light boycott, even though we talked about it like at length, but we'll have to touch on that today. Also, Illinois is perhaps going to go after like homeschool families, or at least put in more regulations regarding homeschool families. So parents are upset about that. And there was a lot of them who came to protest and speak out against that. So we'll be covering that today. Also, I want to touch on a bit of what we talked about yesterday with Harry Sisson, a Democrat influencer, because there was more stuff that I learned from yesterday that I would like to add, because there's just more bad behavior that's more serious than some of the things that was known, that we talked about, that we touched about. So I wanted to make sure that I covered those things as well. And there's other things I'd like to get to as well. We just have to see how we do on time today, guys. But anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because this costs a stream and run my site, all the good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it, and appreciate you guys. You guys are great. Thank you to those of you who are watching live, and to those of you who will watch back later. Thank you. April said I'm looking nice today. Thank you very much. Thank you kindly. Also, you guys can check out the merch on the site. I got different hoodies and t-shirts and so on. So that's another way that you guys can support. I have mugs on there, and you guys know that I have different books that you guys can check out. Some are fiction, nonfiction. So there's a link in the description that'll take you to like an Amazon page if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. But you guys can also go to my website, ninjadustpublishing.com, to just learn more about my writing. And I do like impromptu questions and things like that. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I have mentioned something about dolphins yesterday, because I was talking about the astronauts landing, and dolphins being there. And I had made a comment like, I don't love dolphins because I just kind of know too many things about dolphins. And people were like, what's the dolphin tea? And so I don't know, maybe I'll do a short about dolphin tea, but it's just things you can't unlearn about the dolphins. So I just thought it was funny that you guys, watching back, people responded to it and wrote in the comments like, what's the tea on the dolphins? It has to do with mating stuff. So and as to why I know things, one of the books that I've written is like it deals with mermaids. So it's in my Cursed Universe series. And so it's like a take on the Dark Mermaid, on the Little Mermaid. It's inspired, by Hans Christian Andersen story, and there's some Easter egg stuff that you'll see that from like the Disney film and stuff too, but it's within a universe of like the werewolves one and the like the vampires and stuff too. So it's in the same universe. Those characters will eventually like interact and stuff, but it's a cool book, and there's a sequel out too, which is a Sea Witch. But anyway, I just had to read a lot about the ocean and different fish and mammals, and I was at one point I was trying to like how do the mermaids mate, and so just reading about different things and just learned about different characteristics of different creatures that live in the water. So I'll just leave it at that, and maybe I'll get back with you guys later about it. I saw one video on TikTok that's talking about dolphins, and they left that information out. So I stitched something about it, and they're like, "Why do you think I left that information out?" So we'll just have to talk about it at a different time. I just thought it was funny. Anyway, yesterday I talked about Harry Sisson, and Harry Sisson, for those of you who don't know, he's a big influencer on the left. He has a lot of TikTok followers. I'm talking about like in the millions, maybe like 2 million or something like that. A lot of followers on X. He's hobnobbed with a lot of different Democrats, interviewed different Democrats. He's met President Biden and other folks, really stomped for Kamala Harris, interacts with other, Democrat influencers and stuff. And so he got busted by all these girls that he was chit-chatting with, and they were, sending he'd say, I'm, not seeing other girls, I don't have a roster of girls. So he's lying to girls, and there's at least like 11 that he was interacting with, probably more. And some of them were sending sexy sort of snaps and things like that, like Snapchats, and he would save them. And so he got called out for that kind of behavior. Now, at the time, I didn't know if any of this was that he had even slept with some of these girls. Some of these girls he did hook up with. But one girl told a story that I watched last night. They like were casual hookups. They were casual hookups. If they were like in the same place, like in DC or something, it was just kind of known that, hey, we're gonna hook up and we're gonna do the deed. And so it's just this wretched sort of hookup culture that they are cool with. By the way, there's folks on the right who do that kind of stuff too. This is not just a left problem. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure you guys know people in your circle, or not, maybe not your immediate circle, but just like in your life, who do the texting and the dumb Snapchats, suggest that send things maybe they ought not send, who sleep around, who lie about how many people they're dating and are juggling women or juggling men. This story, it's not like too out of the ordinary or whatever, but so they were hooking up and stuff. But she said that sometimes he would send messages like send me nudes or whatever. And then but when he really, I guess, started asking her to do that, there was someone in some like Discord or chat or something who was a guy named Camille Morion, Morion, or I think Camille is his name, but he's a guy. He like worked with Harry in like he has like a social media kind of networking company or something like that. And so he was allegedly reaching out and saying stuff to a 14-year-old boy who was autistic. And so this young woman who Harry was fooling around with, found out about that, and she like told Harry about that. And Harry was like protecting this guy, and he kept trying to protect the guy. And so I guess according to her story, Harry was trying to get her to send things of herself, like the nudes and other things like that, to be able to blow her credibility. And that's a tale as old as freaking time. Like that reminds me of like communist. I mentioned in the Color Communism Common Sense, this guy, black guy who defected from the Communist Party, was talking about some of their tactics, and so they recruit black people to the Communist Party to spread like communism, not really help black people at the end of the day. But if there were any black people who wanted to defect from the Communist Party or whatever, they would have set them up by then, like having some kind of affair with a white woman or whatever. So if they ever told any business or were going to, they'd be like, hey, we have this fat, juicy blackmail here. And even if you do go ahead and you start ratting us out, you're not going to have any kind of reputation that anyone's going to really believe you anyway. So that's really disgusting. That's really gross. And so if he is actually and has actually, according to what this young woman is alleging, protecting groomers, potential pedophiles, that's very cancel. You should be canceled. Like, I don't think it's a shame that people listen to Harry anyway. He's been a propagandist. He's been a liar. He says things, promote things that are not true. And then presents things in such a dishonest way. Like some people, they're just like wrong about some things, but then there's other people who are just flat out propagandists and they don't care. They don't care. So he's a lot of these kids have been like really bad actors. But maybe some of them are just kind of ignorant and they have a worldview. A lot of them are young people believe a lot of dumb things. But Harry's, I would say, not a good dude. They're so sort of like white dudes for Harris, Brat Pack. Him and Dean and Parker and Chris Mallory. Chris Mallory, I will never forget that. And Chris is like is I think Harry's like best online friend. But he said that January 6th was their generation's 9/11. So just to give you a little insight on the sorts of things that these kids put out there in the world. So Dean and Parker have thrown Harry under the bus. And I don't even know if it's about the groomer stuff so much. I think just the lying to the women, because it does, they're like, oh, we're feminists, we care about women. It's Trump and all these folks, they're gross, they're disgusting, we care about women, we're fighting for women. And then they lie to women, manipulate women, and then they, when the women get together and start calling you out so you can be accountable for what you're doing, you say that they're crazy and that they're lunatics, so you can't even be honest about what you're doing. So he's just a fraud, like he's a hypocrite. But I'm not surprised. Anyone who's been paying attention is not surprised. So I said yesterday, it's really bad for his brand. But this other groomer stuff is a far worse development for him. But his buddies Parker and Dean are separating themselves from him. Let me see if I got some stuff saved from them stepping away. Here's a video of Dean. If you're not familiar with Dean, Dean's been on Jubilee a few times, but Dean is also, Dean got in trouble some time ago, and he wasn't like canceled. Just got in I don't know even if it was that much trouble, but he's young. There's messages with him using the N-word and other things like that, bad language. So he's been called out for that, but not destroyed. They're like, oh, he was a kid and he's come out and he's apologized for that. But he used to like run like a sort of get rich internet kind of scheme thing about like he was putting out a book or something and all these tips to get money and all this stuff, and he was promoting it like a marketing ploy, kind of like an Andrew Tate Pimps University or whatever Andrew Tate was calling it. And so it was like E-Rich life or something that Dean was doing. So he's always been a fraudster, and he's found a niche that he can do really well in with his debates, and you know, really pushing the Democrat Party. And but some of the stuff that he says is just so nonsense or whatever. Like, he on his show, he played a clip of him talking to a caller, and they were talking about inflation. And so Dean was like alleging, trying to make the guy look stupid. But to Dean seemed to believe that all like price increases were inflation by definition. And if you like know anything about it, economics, it's just not true. Like, for example, I remember uh like Bush age, and you know, when Bush was president or whatever, especially like my dad would he talked a lot more about politics on the pulpit and stuff sometimes, but he just would warn like, hey, this is going on in the Middle East, go pump your gas tonight. Because this is probably going to impact the price of oil, the barrels of oil, and then the prices are going to go up. So there's all kinds of reasons, like supply chain disruptions and whatnot, that can lead to price increases. But he tried to make it seem like any increase in prices is just inflation by definition. So didn't make any sense. But anyway, here's a him talking about how he's not friends with Chris and Harry.
Anyways, for the first 866 of you guys, make sure to double tap on that phone screen and share that live and spam that comment section. Listen, I don't even know where to start. You know, I before coming on live, kind of like all day, I've kind of been like sitting back thinking about what I want to say in response to Harry and Chris, because I'm sure that you guys have all heard about that. I mean, it's been like the #1 story on Twitter for the last 30 hours straight. A couple news sources even picked it up. And I've been so mentally distressed for like the last day or two. And like even just the term mentally distressed, I don't even think correctly represents, you know, the journey to hell and back, just, you know, fighting through so many different dynamics, etc. And I think what I want to leave you guys with is I'm not friends with Chris and Harry. And that's it. You know, there's so many thoughts that I have in my head. Goes on.
I'm sorry, I think I accidentally like moved the cursor, but I think someone like posted a picture of them together. They're definitely hanging out. He's like, they're not friends anymore or whatever, but oh, let me see. Here, I think I just saw it. Yeah. There's a, you know, they're like the Democrat brat pack white dudes for Harris, you know, kiddos. They're all like cahoots. And by the way, he's saying this stuff, oh, I'm really distressed, but people are saying that he was in like similar chats and was aware of, you know, Harry's kind of behavior too. So I don't why does anyone trust these kids? I mean, they're grown. They're adults or whatever. They're just, I mean, younger than I am, but they are grown.
And that's it. You know, there's so many thoughts that I have in my head. So many thoughts. So many thoughts. And I don't think right now I'm even in a place where I can adequately give you guys those thoughts in a way that makes sense. So I think for right now, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not friends with Chris and Harry. And I think as time goes on and I'm able to gather my thoughts and present them to you guys in a way in which makes sense, we could do that. But honestly, right now, I'm tired. I'm defeated. And I've gone through so many emotions in the last 2 days. But for the 2.2 thousand people in here, I appreciate you guys for being in here. Make sure that you are double tapping away on that phone screen for me, sharing out that live. We are going to hop into the debates, but before we do, there's actually one other thing that I did want to say here. So before coming on here, I did talk to the women, and I basically asked them if there's anything that they wanted me to kind of reiterate to you guys, because I'm sure that this message won't just reach the 2.5 thousand people that have just tuned into the live. I'm sure that it will be screen recorded. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be in a lot of different places. Please don't harass these women at all. They've been sent their own address. They've been, it is absolutely disgusting. It is absolutely just gross in so many ways. And that is what they wanted me to tell you. Don't harass.
Yeah, I mean, I saying that don't harass them, but you can certainly criticize some of their actions, sending inappropriate things, and in the first place, and being friends with these nitwits at all. But I don't think it's an excuse that just that you're young and you do dumb things. Like, obviously you do get wiser with age, hopefully. But I wasn't as wise as a kid as I am now, and I can look back and say, oh, those were some dumb things that I did, but I was never like a dumb kid. There's a lot of times on TikTok or whatever, I'd have conversations with people and I'm like, this person is under 25. I go in their profile and I'm like, look at that. They're 19. They're 22. And I was always right. I just had to say, I'm like, this person is probably 17. And I was like, when I would get that feeling, I'm not saying I could predict everyone who was young or whatever in that age range, but there was just something with the comprehension skills. I'd be like, this is not a grown person. And I just was always, I guess, wiser for my age. But Parker also wrote, a statement about it. He said, everyone, I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry for the way I've responded publicly so far. Privately, I've been an emotional train wreck, and that's why I haven't been able to go live or make any videos. Hearing someone I used to consider my friend do such as what Harry did has taken a deep toll on my mental health and my ability to trust people close to me. I am not friends with Harry or Chris anymore, publicly or privately, since I have learned what they did. I hope all of you know I'm a different person in terms of who I associate with online versus privately. Yeah, but I don't know. They just do behave so shady and gross to like, online, or how they deal with people or debate and talk and stuff. It's just and they are so insincere that I'm like, most of this stuff, the groomer stuff is another level, but like them lying to the girls, and I'm like, this is the party of we believe we should be able to kill babies. Like, him lying to some girl, like juggling girls, is small potatoes compared to like what they advocate for in the world. I don't even know how some of these kids, justify their worldview as far as what morality and stuff is. Dean, by the way, I can't remember what scripture it was, but one of the most viral videos from him, he was trying to debunk the Bible, and he brought up a passage in the Bible that like doesn't exist. He like said the wrong scripture, and he got roasted by so many people. And then he like did a correction video, and he's like, I meant to say this scripture, and it wasn't even what he claimed was in the verse that he meant to say. He wasn't even articulating the story properly, and making the claims that he was making wasn't actually in the passage. So I don't know. They're just full of clicks and lacking in sincerity to me. So you're gonna tell me they didn't have an inkling of some of the stuff going on before? I can understand them wanting to protect their brand and distancing themselves from their friend, but they're all buddies. Harry and Parker, they were all buddies like 2 seconds ago. Anyway, that's all I got to say. I just wanted to update that there was a more serious thing going on. And to reiterate that he did sleep with some of these girls, but some of these girls, they had like a casual kind of thing. Also, if someone was like asking for, I'd be blocking people if they sent anything appropriate like that to me anyway, but I guess that's the world they live in, what they allow. And hookup culture, that it's just another thing out there for these ladies. This hookup culture, like the girls, like, oh, guys did all this stuff, and we need to fight back, and now we're going to be empowered, and we get to sleep around. It's like, no, you did not do yourself any favors by throwing your virtue out of the window. You did not, because you just empower more people like Harry Sisson to be dogs. You should demand better, but you should do as you ought to do, and demand that they do as they ought to do. Everybody should try to be better, not come down to a lower level. There's a great article, I've talked about it before. I'm not going to go into it today, but it's by Bridget Fantasy. I think that's maybe how you say your last name, but I'm not sure. But she used to write for Playboy, and she wrote an article, Why I Regret Being a Slut. I'm sure you'll be able to find it if you want to take the time to read it. It's an excellent article. I recommend that you guys do take the time to look at that. Anyway, moving on. I want to talk about Tesla and what's been going on. So people have been literally lighting Teslas on fire. People have been advocating for it. Rick Wilson, who's with the Lincoln Project, he's been suspended off of X, by the way. He tweeted, kill Tesla, save the country. Probably not a great thing to tweet out on the platform of the person who owns Tesla and founded Tesla. But you are promoting domestic terrorism. People are going around doing this stuff in retaliation because of politics. Like, it's domestic terror. It's vandalism, it's arson, but it's also acts of domestic terror as well. So people have been advocating for this, and people are mocking Elon, and it's just really, really nuts. I don't understand how people can get so nutty, like setting all this stuff on fire because you don't like Elon. And I thought you guys cared about the environment, and Elon has been frustrated with like these people prior to him like endorsing Trump and stuff. He's voiced annoyance with so many people coming against him, and he's like, I lead the way in electric vehicles. I lead the way. So he doesn't take a lot of these folks seriously. But on the 5, Jessica Tarlov, who's the resident Democrat who will be on the panel, they switch them out sometimes, but she's usually there. She condemned the vandalism, but she also brought up in comparison the Bud Light thing. So I got to talk about how silly this is.
You guys know, I think Elon Musk has done a tremendous amount of good. I think Starlink is one of the more exciting modern discoveries or creations that there is. I, again, reiterate, I draw the line at arson. No one should be setting cars on fire. But I would argue, no, this is an important point. It's a free market point, but also we talked about Dylan Mulvaney, a single trans influencer who was on a single can of beer for months. And that can of beer set the conservative movement on proverbial fire, rooting against at least half an American company, the Anheuser-Busch side of things. Kid Rock out there doing target practice with Budweiser cans, people vowing to decimate that brand. And Dylan Mulvaney has much less of an impact on people's lives than Elon Musk does. So is that okay? Or that was wrong too, and everyone wants to mea culpa over that. It was one can of beer with one transgender person on it.
No one was intimidated not to buy Bud
Really?
Light.
Then why did it drop?
No,
why did they lose market value?
Because it wasn't Dylan Mulvaney. It was the marketing person who denigrated the people who drank the beer.
Really, Dylan Mulvaney didn't get denigrated?
She did. He did.
Sorry.
I correct myself.
So, Gavin Newsom had brought up how he thought like cancel culture, it was, like, oh, people on the right want to talk about it, but they cancel Bud Light. And it's like, you guys just don't understand this still after all these conversations, all this commentary. Bud Light with the Dylan Mulvaney thing, they damaged their brand. Yes, they had people like in the company who were in charge of different stuff who seemed to not like their customer. And I think that's always a problem. Like, you guys know that, or at least I've mentioned it many times, that I stopped watching Disney films. I haven't seen any new Marvel film in a while. The last thing I saw was WandaVision, so it's been a minute. I haven't seen like any of their animation in a minute. Or their live actions, I like Pixar and stuff. I went to school for a little while for animation. I'm not a Disney like adult or anything like that, but I do like me some Disney. And I did like Marvel. I'm totally like not enthused about the brand anymore. So I've just really, at the end of the day, felt that this company doesn't like me, my family, the values I was raised on, and they seem to resent the fact that we helped build them to where they are. They revel in making the fan bases upset. Like the writers of She-Hulk are like, "Ooh, we can't wait to tick off the fans today." And I just think that is such a bad way to go about life. And Eric July, who started his own like comic book company, he said you should not give more than 50% of your money to people who hate you. And I'm like, you know what? That's a pretty good piece of advice. So with Bud Light, if people felt like this brand doesn't respect their customer base, nor do they understand it, why would they go out of their way to support it? But it wasn't even just that, and them like understanding that this brand doesn't respect them and they shouldn't put their dollars there. The brand itself became toxic because you think, I don't know, I don't like alcohol, whatever. It's, I've never had it. I don't even like the smell, but they they're blue collar, hanging out, frat and driving cars and cowboys and like just not that women don't drink or whatever, but just like chill out, masculine kind of stuff, situations, hanging out, relaxing, chilling with the boys, things like that. And now it's, oh, there's a goofy dude pretending to be a woman, cosplaying as a woman in a bathtub, being all super goofy. And that's all of a sudden the person who has a huge platform. Like Dylan Mulvaney had millions and millions of people who watched his stuff on TikTok. It was no small influencer. And maybe they thought they were making a business decision or whatever. Didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, but they made a specialized can with his face on it. And so to them, they're like, that's who you are choosing to associate your brand with. And that ain't me. Like if that's the face of your beer, I don't want to be associated with that. It's repellent to me. And it went beyond the sphere of like on X. It went beyond the sphere of TikTok. I was at an event we were planning a fundraiser and for veterans and stuff, and people were saying stuff like, yeah, make sure there's no Bud Light. And these aren't people who are like chronically online like I am, who were saying those things, and everyone was aware of it. So it really, pierced through typical sort of cultural war online activity. It really made an impact, and so people just they were embarrassed to drink it. So you have an issue when people are embarrassed to use your product. Bud Light did that to themselves. They did that to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot. And nobody else did. So if the customers were like, I don't want anything to do with that, it's different than even the Target stuff. Like, people can be like, I don't like what they did, the Pride Month and the weird swimsuits and some of this goofy stuff going on at Target. But a lot of people are like, man, I still got to go to Target though. Like, them diapers are, I heard that, the diapers are really cheap compared to other places. And there's a lot of things you go get at Target. People about that red card life, they go there, though they may not love what some of the stuff that they're doing, but it still wasn't like replaceable to a lot of folks. And so maybe they, there were boycotts of Target, but it wasn't like the Bud Light thing where you made your brand toxic and people had other options to like invest in and go drink and use or whatever. So it's just not a good comparison with the Tesla stuff at all. At all. So I'd be embarrassed to have even brought that up. People who decided that they didn't want to drink Bud Light, they did nothing wrong. People standing firm and not partaking of it, they did nothing wrong. Bud Light damaged their brand. And Dylan Mulvaney, she said that Elon affects people more in a way than like Dylan Mulvaney does. Well, I mean, he's in such proximity to the president. That's obviously true. But he's also a billionaire who's funded and founded so many incredible things. I mean, there was PayPal, for example. She mentioned herself, Starlink, and the innovations there, or SpaceX, and other things that he's working on. So he's someone who adds far more value to the world than Dylan Mulvaney as well. These people were mad and setting his cars on fire. So even that's a stupid comparison to bring up as well. Like, people can be mad about Elon's politics, which, by the way, he voted for Joe Biden in the election before last. He was on the left, and he is certainly no social conservative. Okay? He's not, but the other side is insane. So there he is by the president's side. He felt it was necessary to get involved, so he did. So yes, he has a much bigger impact than Dylan Mulvaney and a much more positive impact. But Dylan, people might like, I know, some of his content or whatever, but as far, he has a negative impact in the world. With the social contagion of gender dysphoria, his caricature of women that are, I don't know, like a caricature, like a minstrel show. Like, that's like how he performs. And people who are elevating him for whatever reason are just insane. It's not like he was just only on TikTok and just a mass of stuff. This person sat and interviewed the president and did other things and sat on Drew Barrymore's couch and was just on The View. So this is a deluded individual who other people decided to celebrate. And it's what he represents is something that's just contrary to the truth. So to compare it to Elon is just silly. It's just silly. Especially because they're lighting stuff on fire. People just decided to not spend their money on products. People have a right to do that. People have a right to spend their money how they want. And by the way, Elon is just trying to say with Doge and other stuff, the government, you make your money, the government confiscates it, and then they spend it on stupid crap. And you ought to know what they're spending it on, and they should be better stewards of your money that they take at the threat of gunpoint. Like you have to pay your taxes or you go to jail or whatever. You'll be fined and whatever the consequences are. Is what he's doing really so evil? Is it so wrong? I can understand people being upset because they're going to lose their jobs and be laid off, and trimming the fat, things that he did like at X, trying to bring that over to the government. I understand that. I understand that. And it happens obviously in private industry because he did it with X. That sucks for sure. But if you do want the government to be better stewards of our money and spend less, because we do spend entirely too much, where are the cuts coming from? Is the question. Something has to be cut. Something has to be cut. Maybe they're making the right decisions or wrong decisions, but it's somewhere they have to trim the fat. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. So many people being mad at Elon. Some of these folks are just crazy. But some of these folks are gleeful about it. Like I showed you guys Rick Wilson's tweet, but there's other folks who are happy about it and posting stuff. And other folks who have brought up the Bud Light thing, like Secular Talk. Here he did a little meme of boycott Bud Light, boycott Target, boycott the NFL. And then when they say, well, boycott Tesla, it's like angry face and raging out. They're not just boycotting Tesla, which a lot of people out here complaining don't have money for Tesla like that anyway. It's a very expensive car. But people are lighting them on fire, and people are keying cars that no longer belong to Elon, don't belong to the dealerships, they belong to other people. And they see a Tesla out in person and they just start keying the car and putting like swastikas into it or whatever. That's insane. That's insane. And people should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. What does that person driving the car have anything to do with anything? They own that car. They purchased it, or they're leasing it or whatever. You're not hurting Elon. He already got his check. You're hurting that person who's maybe got the car to save the environment. So it's just nutty. Jimmy Kimmel, I saved this clip. I haven't watched it yet. We'll watch it together, but apparently said something about it.
Even been on incidents of arson. Someone lit a bunch of Teslas on fire. And here's the thing. I get that people are upset. Burning a car might not be great for the environment. I don't think that's what they had in mind when they invented the electric car. In Las Vegas yesterday, someone threw a Molotov cocktail at a Tesla service center. At least 5 Teslas blew up, 1 from the Molotov and 4 because that's just what Teslas do sometimes. And no one should be setting fires. You could kill somebody. You could hurt somebody. Elon Musk might not care about other people, but decent Americans should. The world's richest man, has been trying to drum up sympathy for himself lately. His sales are down. His stock is down. Last night, he was somber as he went through this with Sean Hannity.
Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged. There's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
Well, let me see if I can explain it for you. When you pull out a chainsaw to celebrate firing thousands of people, they get mad. It's just my God, I mean, this poor guy. You do one, maybe two Nazi salutes, everybody gets all bent out of shape. Donald Trump today had.
So, Elon didn't do Nazi salutes. But people can believe what they want to believe. I could show you a clip of Macron doing touch your heart, or hand out in the air and then touch his heart sort of thing. That's similar to what Elon did, but I would say that Elon was throwing his heart out to the crowd. Some people want to see it differently. At this point in time, I don't know how much it's worth arguing with people. Whatever. It is what it is. You believe whatever you believe. But I don't know, when people go that route, or many different routes, in my mind, I'm just like, you people believe in killing babies. You people believe in killing babies. like you guys you support something so evil. And you're mad about him throwing his heart out to a crowd. Yeah, people, Elon creates, he does cool things. He does things what he believes are the betterment of mankind. I hope none of his projects turn into Skynet or something like that. I hope he doesn't bring some kind of alien life form that destroys all life on the planet from Mars, or there's just a lot of sci-fi things I've seen. But for mostly it seems like he does genuinely want to help people, and one of the reasons why he got so involved and invested in the election is because he thought we were going down a pathway of our country going down a path of no return. And so that's one of the reasons why he threw his heart out to the crowd, because he believed that we saved human civilization, in his words. So, he builds rocket ships and companies, and he builds jobs, and he took a lot of flack for taking over X, or taking over Twitter, then renaming it X. I still prefer the name Twitter, but whatever. But he took that over for based off of like free speech principles, and I think that was good what he did. So he's done a lot of good. There's things about Elon that I'm not fond of. I don't like him having this is number 14 kids and all these different baby mamas, and some of them by IVF, and it seems like he's kind of a modern day polygamist. And I don't like that thing. I don't like that. I think in the long run, he's doing some things that are not committed to the flourishing of his children by the way that he reproduces. But, there's things to critique about him for sure. But nobody should be doing all this evil and awful stuff. And to Kimmel's credit, he did say nobody should be burning stuff. That's not the way to go. But he is still... They are still doing it, and he is still choosing to take the time to mock him and to falsely claim that he's doing Nazi salutes. So when you keep elevating that folks are going around doing Nazi salutes, and that they support Hitler and they support someone who's like Hitler-esque or whatever, you just gin up more insane people to go out and do more insane things. So you guys can say it's bad, and then the but... it kind of makes everything you said irrelevant, because you are just encouraging more crazy people to go out and do more crazy things. I'm not saying he's inciting it, because I think there's specific things that you have to do. That's actually like a specific crime and parameters you have to meet, but he's definitely not encouraging sane people to do sane things. I mean, or insane people to do sane things, And as far as the jobs, again, there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of dumb positions that people have, a lot of abuse that people have done in the government. You have to try to find ways to make it more efficient for them to for us to spend less money, to have smaller budgets, because if we don't find that way, we're just going to bankrupt the country, and it's not necessarily us who will suffer, but it's going to be the generations we leave behind. And it's not fair to them. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to them that we just keep piling on problem after problem after problem. We have to find a way to generate more revenue and to also take down our costs. And frankly, I don't think I like what they're doing with Doge, and I like their mission, but they're not doing enough yet. They're not doing enough yet, and I don't think we'll maybe get to where we kind of need to go. And my sister pointed out dealerships are privately owned as well, you know. But they can keep further red pilling Elon, because again, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago that he voted for Biden, and now he's investing so much money into politics that he's like helping to shift outcomes of elections and flipped states and counties and all that stuff. So keep ticking off the richest man in the world. And then even Jim Kimmel talking about that kind of stuff, like, oh, the richest man in the world, as if people aren't supposed to have sympathy for him because he has money. I know he didn't say that, but that's just kind of like, you know, where the beats were landing with the jokes and the audience and stuff. It's just I hate rich people kind of, you know, greed and attitude, as if Jimmy's also not rich and privileged. You know, he gets on there and cries and expects people to feel sorry for him. So a lot of these people are just trash. There's another video of people mocking this from the Daily Show. Let's see what they had to say.
And some people are not content to just scream about Elon in a high school gym. They're taking to the streets or the parking lots.
Tonight, the FBI and ATF now investigating multiple cases of possible arson targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month, shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on fire in Seattle.
Wow, you guys like petty acts of domestic terrorism, huh? Cool. Wow. Okay, let me just say, nobody should be breaking the law and blowing up Teslas, especially because if you just wait a few minutes, they'll probably do it by themselves.
So yeah, that crowd is cheering on domestic terrorism, and Stephen L. Miller said the fact that people are still acting somewhat surprised at this stuff is telling, because a few months ago they all cheered on a public execution in broad daylight, kind of think there's no real coming back from that. And yeah, they talking about Luigi, people were cheering that on and still cheering on. I saw a Cliff Kennett video. He's an apologist. Him and his son go around to different campuses and you know, teach the gospel and defend the gospel and stuff. And so someone confronted him and was like, Luigi did nothing wrong. And he's like, what do you mean? He didn't do anything. He's like, well, he killed somebody who hurt people. And he's like, I have you ever hurt people? He's like, well, maybe emotionally. He's like, come on, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm a dirty sinner. You're a dirty sinner. Now, like, how dare you have that attitude of like, yeah, it's okay that he murdered somebody. So good on Cliff for that. But there's something twisted and broken within people to have the audacity to do these things, and to cheer them on. These folks are sick. But even beyond Luigi, think about October the 7th and those kids from Harvard who were like, well, we're not saying that we agree with what they did, but I mean, the Jews Israel kind of deserved it. Like, those sort of sentiments that were going around. And not just like at Harvard. There was um uncomfortably close sort of rallies and things happening in my neck of the woods. And in Dearborn and other places. And we covered those things at the time, but and then like BLM chapters, celebrating the people who came in and, flew into the festival to kill people. So people are really sick right now. But that's what happens when you don't value life. You don't believe that life is inherently valuable and that human beings are inherently valuable and that the right to life is a God-given right, that it's really subjective and how we value that person. And it just trickles down those sorts of worldviews and those sorts of beliefs. And you feel that you can cause pain to people who cause you pain. Or I don't know, if you even just having righteous indignation or whatever, maybe they didn't harm you, the idea of them doing something, you feel empowered to go cause damage and harm as well. So I just, I'm not surprised with how wicked the world is. I'm not surprised with how wicked the world is at all. But it is a shame. It is a shame. Okay, so I do want to talk about the story in Illinois is going on right now. So in Illinois, apparently there's not a lot of regulations and stuff on homeschooling. And so there's a bill that came out of the education committee that's going to move forward to different votes to put more watchful eyes on the homeschool community. So they have to parents have to report if they're taking their kids out, and if they don't feel like the children are being properly taken care of and educated and other stuff like that, then they will be subject to review and other things like that. So parents are upset about it and speaking out. And so there are families who came to protest, to voice their concerns. They're saying that if they pass this law, which there were other things in the past that people have brought up to try to limit the power of homeschool parents before, but those things got withdrawn. And I don't know if the governor of Illinois will or won't go ahead and sign this. Because you could make a case that it's well worth doing, but obviously there's lots of concerns about parental rights and how these people who would do oversight would decide that you are teaching appropriate curriculum to your children. And a lot of these parents, they decided to homeschool their kids after COVID. And they kept kids out of schools and did the virtual learning and caused a lot of harm to these kids. And how many kids in Illinois can't even read? And they want to come after homeschool parents. Clearly the system isn't working out too well for a lot of different people who live in that state. But the governor, I think he has JB Pritzker. I don't think that's how you say his last name, but he's the really big guy who was at the DNC convention talking and trashing about how Donald Trump's not even that rich and he's got more money than him. I love how they trash rich people and then they're like, by the way, I have more money than you. But he's someone that folks are talking about potentially trying to seek higher office. So I think he's going to be kind of careful about what he signs, but maybe he'll sign this, but there's a lot of upset parents. But if the Democrats want to sign it, there's nothing really that can be done because they have a big majority in Illinois. So there was investigations that they did in the past of a child who was homeschooled and he missed a lot of school and was going to repeat the third grade, and he told let me just read this paragraph. An investigation documented the case of LJ, a 9-year-old whose parents decided to homeschool him after he missed so much school that he faced the prospect of repeating 3rd grade. He told child welfare authorities that he was beaten and denied food for several years while out of the public school, and that he received almost no education. In December 2022, on LJ's 11th birthday, the state took custody of him and his younger siblings soon after he enrolled in public school. So there are, you know, a lot of people who will be reported by teachers if they notice like off things. And so could there be some folks and kids slipping through the cracks? That's possible. There's also abuse that happens in schools when kids go to schools, whether it's from some kind of administrator or other kids themselves. So there's definitely more conversations to be had, and it's just really not as simple as let's just keep making sure there's oversight with these parents, because again, what happens when the oversight starts infringing on the curriculum or things that you think that you should be properly teaching your children, but the state wants to interject, I don't know, gender ideology or something, and saying you have to teach these things to your kids. If you don't teach about inclusion or whatever, then you know that's not good education for your child, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's parents who are concerned about where this could lead, and there's a lot of homeschool advocates that are saying that they're going to fight because they're infringing on the parental rights. And they failed in the past, but again, if they want to pass this, they have the numbers to push it through. But if the governor wants to run for president, I'm sure this will be a topic that's brought up if he signs that bill. But we'll have to keep updated on the story and see how it goes. When I was a kid, I wanted to be homeschooled so bad. I did, you know, have a fine experience, especially when we moved out to like Davisburg, and I went to Holly High, and it was a lot better than like Pontiac schools and stuff where I was initially. It was night and day. It was just a huge like leap forward. The right public school can make the biggest difference in the world to a kid. But there were teachers who overstepped and really had a lot of their personal baggage and dogma that they would try to impart in different kids. And I was strong enough and wise enough and rooted and grounded enough to push back against those kinds of folks. But unfortunately, a lot of education these days is an indoctrination ground. You drop your kid off, you go off to work, so many hours in a day. These teachers have your kids, and unfortunately, especially if you, I don't know, look online, there's teachers who don't respect the boundaries of the parent and the teacher and the student, and they feel like, I don't know, they're be a good parent or whatever, but in their eyes, they're protecting them by instilling different values and things that the parents wouldn't want them, like if it was like LGBT or something, for example, and they have to help the you know, go around the ignorant, you know, parent and instill their values and things into their children, and it's just not right. I didn't have to really deal with that when I was in school. There were teachers who were very political, but the political stuff, like, you know, I could push back against that, you know, but there's kids who go to school and they're indoctrinated by their teachers or whatever they don't teach them how to think. They tell them what to think. But I had one teacher, I think in the 9th grade, who was very political, but he was also anti-religious. And I'm like, why is this stuff coming up in our like government class like this? So this was like typical like ninth grade government. And he'd be talking about Christianity and he just had a negative view of it. And so, I would push back on him, but not everybody does that. So and I just think it's probably so much worse. Like you'll see these videos of these teachers and who are like, I'm gonna teach them critical race theory. I'm gonna teach them that stuff. I don't care if they take it out of the curriculum. I'm gonna find ways to teach it. I'm gonna find ways to teach your kids about pronouns and all kinds of different things. And I wouldn't want to put my kids in like public school. Like I wouldn't, God bless you, you can find a good one, but that's not my thing. That's not my thing. So I just feel like there's a lot of old school teachers who are online who are just like, it's these new people, they don't understand and they don't care. They don't respect that boundary. They don't respect that boundary. So we'll have to see where that goes. I'll keep you guys up to date as the thing advances or fails. I did want to, we're over an hour. So, and I did start a little late. I guess we can wait till tomorrow to talk about something else interesting about there's this trans influencer who called out Dylan Mulvaney for because he's like doing a podcast in his little intro video, which I was like, I'm not gonna talk about this stupid thing again, like Dylan. And then it got interesting because then a trans influencer was like, this is like a minstrel show. You're doing a characterization of women, and it's just fascinating because they're all pretending. I mean, Dylan's stereotype is a very I would say offensive or whatever, and very much minstrel show, but all these dudes are pretending to be women, but there was something that the person who's criticizing Dylan said the other day that was uber offensive. So I just would like to call them all out, but I'll probably table that for tomorrow. So we have a little more time to dissect it. But there's something I do want to tell you about before I let you guys go. So there was some really cool news for me the other day. So Ruslan announced that David Wood is going to go ahead and debate Alex O'Connor about, and I think it's just the same subject of, did Jesus claim to be God? So Ruslan is I don't know how much music he still does, but he's a rapper, but he's a huge, following in the Christian space on YouTube and stuff. And so he's putting on a conference called the Bless God Summit in California. So one of the nights they're going to have a debate between Alex O'Connor and David Wood. So David Wood, if you're unfamiliar with him, I've mentioned him quite a few times. David Wood is a Christian apologist who once was an atheist, and he's like a psychopath. And he actually got in trouble with the law because he tried to kill his dad. And in prison, because I mean, he people say like, oh, well, if you're not a Christian, you can still choose to not do good, or whatever, and not, you have your own sense of morality, which David's thought that was stupid anyways. Like, who's going to tell you what's good and evil? Like your grandma? Like, if there's nothing, like no God or whatever, then you can be the God. And so he was into some like crazy sort of ideas that he had to like, control with his brain or whatever. But where do you ground your morality if it's, a lot of people can't justify it? So anyway, he went to prison And in prison, he met a guy named Randy who actually turned himself in. And Randy was a Christian, and so he tried to mock him and do some Reddit tier atheist type of rebuttals. And Randy had answers for all that stuff. So David became obsessed with trying to defeat Randy. And in his pursuit of trying to defeat Randy, he just, learned more and studied more and ending up converting to Christianity. There's a really cool video about it that he did some time ago on YouTube. You guys can go find, David Wood's testimony video. I've talked about it before. And so David ended up becoming friends with this guy named Nabil in college. And Nabil was a Muslim. And so they formed a really tight friendship. And through the years, he was able to convert Nabil to Christianity. And, Nabil, he was a Muslim. He didn't believe that Jesus died on the cross. He didn't believe in the reliability of the gospel. He didn't believe that Jesus claimed to be God. He believed he was a prophet, but he didn't believe that he claimed to be God or that he was God. So those were things that he had to debate with Nabil. And I always found it fascinating that the things that he tried to debate Randy about, were things that he later in life had to debate Nabil about. And he was, obviously able to convince Nabil of the reliability of the gospel, that Jesus claimed to be God, that he actually was God, that he was crucified and then he rose, from the dead. So anyway, that's a little background on that. So Alex O'Connor is a very popular atheist. He has over 1 million, subscribers on YouTube. He's debated a lot of or interviewed and debated a lot of different Christians and apologists and stuff. He's debated Trent Horn. That was actually one of his and I didn't see the debate, but I know Alex O'Connor held it in high regard for some of the arguments that Trent Horn was using. He's had on William Lane Craig and Frank Turek. He's had conversations with Jordan Peterson and all kinds of different folks about, the gospel and things like that. So at DebateCon, that just happened a couple weeks ago, he was supposed to go there and debate David Wood about whether Jesus claimed to be God. So I was all pumped for it, and they canceled that debate, because Alex dropped out. And I talked about this at the time, and I wrote articles and stuff about it at the time, but he dropped out because of security concerns and threats and stuff. So he's concerned maybe for his safety, but everybody's safety in general. They did have, security and stuff that they had there, the DebateCon, but he opted not to go, and he got reamed on a lot by folks for deciding not to go, being too chicken or whatever. But he opted not to go. So David ended up having to debate. He debated one of his friends about Muhammad. They changed the subject, and David believed that Muhammad was a real person, and his friend that he debated didn't believe that Muhammad was a real person. So they had an interesting debate, but I wanted to see him debate Alex O'Connor. So anyway, you guys know that I went to DC for the Black History Month event. And while I was there, I met Alex O'Connor. I met Alex O'Connor coffee shop. I don't have the picture pulled up right now, but I did show you guys when I talked about my trip. I put on my Instagram page and stuff, but yeah, I met Alex O'Connor in a coffee shop. And so it's so funny because we got there at the White House a little early, and they hadn't started the security check yet, and it was cold. So we decided to go into the coffee shop, and he was there. And so I'm with my eldest sister and my youngest sister. And so I'm talking to my youngest sister because she knows who Alex is. I'm just like, is that Alex O'Connor ordering food right now? So she's like, I don't know. And so she starts looking at pictures to try to see if that's the same nose, and looking at the features and trying to be sure. And I'm like, okay, listen, trying to listen to his accent. Is there an accent? And he was just talking too softly for me to be sure. But I knew it was him. I just was trying to validate it before I went up to speak to him. And so I was just like, screw it. So I just went up there and was like, are you Alex O'Connor? And he's like, yes. And so I was like, it's like, oh, I've seen some of your content and stuff. I'm like, I was looking forward to you debating David Wood. So I was very sorry to hear that, that it wasn't going to go forward. He's like, oh, were you going to debate con? I said, well, I was, but I said, I wanted to, but I've just done a lot of traveling. Like I was just in DC for the inauguration, and now I'm like here. I'm about to go to the White House and stuff. And he's like, you're going to the White House? He's like, you're going in the White House? You're going in the. So he was, I don't know, seemed very impressed and excited. I'm like, yeah, I've been a couple times. Like my sister, she worked for the Trump campaign and stuff. So yeah, we're going for the Black History Month event and stuff. And I kind of said something like, maybe she can hook you up sometime or whatever, if you want to go there or something, but for some kind of other event. But he was just like, oh gosh, that's he thought it was really cool. He was impressed. I guess it was going inside of the White House. And so I said, yeah, is there going to be like another debate? And he's like, well, maybe. But he didn't seem, he seemed interested in maybe having that debate, but not necessarily having it with David. And he had mentioned that, he didn't really like a lot of the backlash that was resulting in him opting not to go. I don't want to tell too much of our conversation or whatever, but so I said, oh, well, I was looking forward to it, because, I just thought it was really interesting because David, I started going through his background like really quick, and I'm like, he used to be an atheist, and so he didn't believe like a lot of these claims about Jesus and the Bible and stuff, and then he was challenged, and he started believing it, and then he used those same arguments to convert his friend Nabil, who was a Muslim. And so he's like, yeah, he's an interesting guy. And I don't know how much he knew about him or whatever, but I said he has one of the most fascinating conversion stories I've ever heard. And so I'm like, so I really like you to debate David on the topic. And so he's like, oh, we'll see and stuff. And so I asked him what he was doing there. And so he was actually came for something in New York, and so he was with his girlfriend, and so they decided to visit DC. And so he's from the UK. So it was just small world. I'm not from DC. I was there for the White House event. And so by the way, the White House event was supposed to be like the week before, and it got moved because of the weather. And like literally we were about to, maybe it was like 2 weeks before that, but it was maybe it was just like about a week before that. But the day we were going to leave, like I went over my parents' house to get in the car with my two sisters, and they're like, oh, they're about to move. They might move the event because of the weather and the shutdown. I'm like, oh, can't we just kind of know? And they're like, you don't understand how DC works. Once there's a little bit of snow, they'll shut everything down, and the trains or all this. She's just like, it'll shut down. So they decided to move it, and they sent out announcements that they were moving it. So it was supposed to be a different day. And I just thought it was fascinating that this time I've been looking at all this stuff and was interested in this debate. And I had been talking about Alex O'Connor, not just because of debate con, but other videos and stuff that he had or whatever. And I've been a fan of David Wood for a while. And I just so happened to go to this event that was moved. We got there a bit early, so it was too cold to wait outside. So we went into this hotel in the coffee shop, which I'm like, I didn't get no coffee. I didn't plan to get no coffee and spend no money there. So, and he happened to be there the same time. And so, I'm like, wow, what if, I don't know. I'm not saying I convinced him to debate David Wood or anything like that, but I'm like, what if I just played a little role there? What if it was, as my sister's saying in the comment, divine timing? What if it's a little bit of divine, timing there? So Ruslan, decided like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and invite Alex out. They're paying to have him come out. I don't know how much they're paying him to actually, if he has a fee or whatever associated. I'm sure he probably does, but you're flying him out and whatnot. So he's going to go ahead and debate David on that subject, that topic. So it's just really, really, really cool. And Alex was very sweet. I felt like we talked quite a bit for a stranger coming up to you in the middle of you ordering coffee. So he seems like a nice guy, and I hope he is on a genuine pursuit of truth and knowledge, and if it is genuine, I feel like he will one day find it. But a lot of folks who claim, don't really seek it. But I hope and pray that he gets her, and it'll just be really cool to see. And whether that debate leads him a step closer to reconciling with Christ. Hopefully other people maybe who watch his content or will happen to be at that conference or whatever will be blessed and have their lives changed. David Wood has blessed a lot of people's lives, changed a lot of lives, especially a lot of Muslims. He was very good at converting Nabil, so he got some other Muslims along the way. Apostate Prophet just converted as well to Christianity. He's Orthodox now, so I don't know. That was probably like the coolest thing of the event, actually. And you're probably like, not going to the White House? I mean, it was cool to go to the White House, but I explained the story about being like stuffed in the room waiting for Trump for like 2 hours. And that was kind of frustrating. So and some of the people around me made it very frustrating. So not my baby sister, she was great, but like when I started explaining the stories, people were like, man, that sounds really kind of awful. I'm like, but meeting other influencers and talking to folks that some I had seen in person and some I not in person but had communicated with, or some people I just watched or stuff. That was neat. That was cool, connecting with people. But that and some conversations and connections that I made the night before, talking about God with other folks, that was worth the trip. But I wouldn't be surprised if I went there just to, I don't know, nudge that a bit in the right direction. I don't know. So who knows, however the Lord works. So am I the one who convinced Alex O'Connor to debate David Wood? Am I the person? I'm not going to take all the credit, and I'm just kind of repeating that because I'm going to clip this and make a separate video, but with a really clickbaity title. But it's just cool, and I pray for David, and I pray that he can concisely lay out the facts to just reveal who Jesus Christ is to the people, and that people would be blessed at the conference. I'm not going myself, unless someone wanted to pay my way or something. I heard, I'm like, California. No offense to well, I don't know. I guess offense to people who live in California is not my zhuzh, not my thing. Hopefully things are better than they have been in the past in your crazy Gavin Newsom state, but I just don't hear California and I'm like, I gotta go there. I'd rather not. Someone said, well, say you had a hand in it. I just if that's how the Lord decided to use me, it's a blessing to be used. Other than that, like there were things about the trip that was hard. Period. Like there was a couple things going on in my life where I had different things to pay for and get done anyway. So just to be frank with you, it was kind of hard to go. So I'm not going to tell all my business, but when I say the Lord made a way, I tell you, God made a way for me to even be able to go to DC and stuff. And then I still had to press my way though, because I was sick. It was my time, if you catch my drift. I had a really bad cold that you guys were aware of that I had for like 5 weeks. I probably had like bronchitis or something like that. I never went to the doctor. I probably should have. But oh, because that night when I came home from the trip and it was in my room, it was like kind of hard to breathe. But I probably should have went to the doctor. But but I had such a really bad sinus issue too, and I couldn't even like drive home. My mother's sisters drove, and I went to an event for the Black Conservative Federation, and I vomited twice there. So it was rough for me. So I had to press my way. Let's just say the enemy was attacking, but I think at the end, God will get the glory out of it all. So you guys pray for Alex, you guys pray for David, and you pray for God's will to be done. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation at the website, because it does cost to stream and run my site, all that good stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. It would be cool to go to see some of the stuff going on in the Bless God Summit, but California. I'm like, Ruslan, why can't you be closer or something? It's cool what they're doing though. I do really appreciate their channel and the kind of stuff that they do, and a lot of the folks who are coming to that event. You guys can check out my different merch that's available on the site to help support as well. And I encourage you guys to also check out some of my different books that I have available, like or Slay Your Fear. Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. That's one of my nonfiction books that's available. And I have, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. You guys can check that out and other stuff that I have as well. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.